If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel, as well as follow me and subscribe to me on all my other social media platforms. What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I'm back with another album review for you guys. This one, I am talking about an album that I was looking forward to once it was announced. We are talking about the 8th studio full-length, I believe this is the 8th one, from pioneers of not only death metal, but death doom arguably, Autopsy with their album Morbidity Triumphant. So, of course, Autopsy, band that's been around for a long time, formed in 1987 by drummer and vocalist Chris Reifert after he had left, well, pretty much after Chuck from Death moved back to Florida and Chris didn't want to come along. He wound up staying in San Francisco and formed Autopsy with some buddies. And, of course, Autopsy, not only a pioneer of death metal, but arguably kind of pioneering death doom a little bit, especially on Mental Funeral in 1991 by bringing in doom influence into the death metal. And then, of course, the following couple of albums, they got very punky and almost grindcore before breaking up and then reforming in the late 2000s and have been kind of on a comeback run ever since Macabre Eternal came out. I believe that was the album that they came back with. Of course, this is their first studio full-length in, I want to say, 7 years. No, 8 years. Excuse me, 8 years. Although technically on Metal Archive, Skull Grinder is listed as a full-length, even though it's under 30 minutes. But let's just say 7 years since Skull Grinder came out. And still on Peaceville Records, which is really, really remarkable. One of the founding fathers of Peaceville Records, musically at least. But how does this album stack up? Well, let's find out. So, we kick things off with Stab the Brain, very much like classic, raw, thrashy death metal riffs and beats right out of the gate, before it transitions into like a gross groove. And the song itself pretty much is balancing between groove pockets and thrashy energy, and it does it quite well. And even the lead work on this track, lots of chaos and shred. Then it goes into Final Frost, where now we get the doom. The doom is unleashed onto our ear holes. And it starts off in that like classic doomy Autopsy style. And the verses pretty much stay doomy at first. Then they turn thrashy, and then it turns thrashy once again in the choruses. The bridge brings back the doom, and then you get a melodic lead from Danny, and then Eric Cutler delivers a more chaotic lead. Kind of like something you would hear from early Bolt Thrower or Slayer, along those lines. Early Morbid Angel, even. And then you get to the Voracious one, and the opening riff harkens back, in my opinion, to Black Sabbath, which there are quite a few Autopsy riffs that definitely feel like they were paying homage and tribute to Black Sabbath. After all, Sabbath is one of Autopsy's biggest influences, so it makes total sense. And I love the riff and the groove that starts us off on a wonderful note, and that swing, the Sabbath swing, continues in the verses and the choruses, pretty much hanging on to that swing for more bars, which it's like, yes, just dry hump that swing. Then the riffs change in the bridge to kind of start to build mood and atmosphere, and it's very suspenseful and dramatic. And then Eric actually delivers a more kind of a classic metal lead that brings together shred, melody, and feel. Born in Blood, again, doom brought onto our ears with an awesome catchy riff. And then in the verses and the choruses, they get very punky, like that D beat shows up, which I think this is one of the only songs on the album where it gets into that like punky side of Autopsy sound. And then more chaotic leads, like pretty much the leads all over the place are just covering all manners of lead work: shred, melody, feel, chaos. And I'll talk about another lead later on where they even bring in an extra ingredient. But at the very end of the song, it gets back to the doom, but it feels a little more evil, a little more sinister sounding than usual that you would hear from Autopsy. Then we get to Strewn Temple. Love the doomy intro we get here, but it has a more melodic approach to the guitars, which was really cool. And then the first verse kind of brings in, like, there's no chorus on this track. It's pretty much all verses and a bridge. The first verse, the riffs get a little bit more aggressive. The second verse brings back the Sabbath swing, but also does the word also make sense? Brings in a little bit of like a Celtic Frost vibe to a degree. Then the following two verses, we get back to the thrash, and even a melodic lead from Eric it starts off melodic, then it turns into just total shred. And the bridge, very thrashy bridge, leading into a lead from Danny where there's some taps going on, and then it turns into a more feeling lead before it ends on a doomy note. Tapestry of scars, melodic doom riff, and a gross bass line that starts off quiet and then it gradually gets louder. Then in the verses, actually I forget, this is the other track that kind of brings in more of that DB punk vibe, and it's felt in the verses. There's cool drum fills going on in the groove on the bridge. Another chaotic lead from Eric, and just excellent drum work overall on this track from Chris. And then the chorus has some standout groove and bass lines going on, and then more shred at the very end courtesy of Danny. Then we get to Knife Slice Axe Chop. Thrashy energy immediately as we get a wild lead from Danny. And that thrash energy is pretty much maintained in the verses and the choruses, as this feels like something from Severed Survival, or even like Autopsy kind of channeling a little bit of death, scream, bloody gore on this track. But then suddenly the song stops, followed by a thick and disgusting bass line, and the mood is supposed to feel gross and disgusting and gruesome with a doom break, and then it finishes off on that thrashy note with shredding lead trade-offs between Danny and Eric. Then we get to Skin by Skin, which was the single off of this album, well, the first of two singles. Gross bass line immediately, and the guitars following suit, which was really cool. The verses are very doomy and almost feeling like you get a feeling of hopelessness, very much in the vein of Mental Funeral. Then you get like a melodic feeling lead in between the verses, thrashy choruses, so it's like doomy verses, thrashy choruses. More melodic shred is showcased towards the end, and then a chaotic lead brings the song to a close. Maggots in the Mirror, which is under 2 minutes, but it is a brutal 2 minutes, as it's thrashing all throughout, and the chorus is something that I could see people in the crowd going for live if they play this song live. And then more shred is unleashed. Slaughter of Souls, sinister doomy riffs in the beginning, with even some harmonies on the guitars, and again, doomy verses, thrashy choruses. And then the lead work here. Now, this song in particular, I think, has the most diverse leads going on, as it mixes feeling, melody, shred, but even some technical play is going on here, as Danny and Eric are really showing off their guitar chops. And then we get to the closer, Your Eyes Will Turn to Dust. The opening doom riff, for me, kind of feels like an Asphyx riff done by Autopsy, which was really cool, considering Asphyx and Autopsy, they're so close to each other musically, even though I think Asphyx is a little more doom-oriented than Autopsy. They're very much companion to each other. And this is another song that doesn't have a chorus. It's basically all verses and a bridge. The first two verses are doomy, Then it gets into that Sabbath swing again, while Danny is shredding his ass off, and the bridge even keeps that Sabbath swing going. Then it turns thrashy for a while, with the following verses, as well as a chaotic lead from Eric. And then in the final lead, as the Doom brings us to a close, it's chaotic on top of Doom, which was something different compared to the other leads and the tempos on the rest of the album. So overall, the production, it's raw, it's gross sounding, but that's what you want from Autopsy. You don't want a clean production. I can't imagine hearing Autopsy with a clean production. It would just feel weird. But here, you know, it's raw, but it's done right. It doesn't sound like it's thin or quiet or muddy. It's, well, I would say it's muddy, but muddy in a good way, not muddy in a bad way, but it's that good kind of muddy, like you love to hear from Autopsy. Of course, a couple of the songs felt a little bit similar in terms of the songwriting structures, like especially with Skin by Skin and Slaughter of Souls having like doomy verses and thrashy choruses. And they do kind of go back and forth a lot between the doom and the thrash, but that's signature Autopsy for you. And I love that they do that. They really showcase that they are pretty much a death metal band that plays around with doom and thrash. Whereas Asphyx, talking about them, they're a death doom band that plays around with thrash. Whereas Autopsy's more just death metal that plays around with thrash and doom. I would say that'd make more sense, to me at least. Of course, I love all the different, like, Sabbath moments you get on here with the riffs and the grooves. Of course, the leads, some of the chaotic leads could have been reduced a little more and could have gone for more feeling leads. But then again, I like hearing some chaos when done right, and Autopsy knows how to do it right. So overall, this is an amazing album. This is almost like Mental Funeral Part 2 to some extent. I am going to give this one a 9.5 out of 10. I think this is a near perfect album. Of course, like I said, a couple of the songs kind of felt similar in the structure, but it doesn't take away from how badass and disgusting this album truly is. Autopsy showing that, hey, one of the godfathers of this lovable, huggable subgenre known as death metal, still able to show to these youngsters that ripped them off what it was that they ripped off. So, horns high to you, Autopsy, for delivering a badass album. This, I could see this being on my year-end list, no doubt. But of course, that's my opinion. What did you guys think of Morbidity Triumphant by Autopsy? Let me know in the comments section below. And until next time, horns high. See you guys later.
What the heck is fellatio?
Cole, out of all the people in here, you should know what that is.
Every time I'm soft, I'm supposed to try to dab a shine.
Is it a new way to torture people?
Getting a little too friendly.
No! Well, it depends on how you look at it.
Wait, so fellatio is stimulation of the penis? Really?
Thanks for letting me do that. I might pick that part.
Cole. It's another name for a blowjob.
Okay. Every time
I thought it was a dick
It's a deep
punishment.
throat blowjob.
Alright, here we go. Okay.
Moving on.
Sounds like Carson's getting one right now.
God damn.
This game has gone to hell.